To me, though, that whole option, going back to the wholesaling hairy arm, that seems like that's a very common thought process. Just nobody thought of it in a hairy arm. Is there other strategies, other techniques that are not so much option, but like that could be considered an hairy
right.
arm?
Well,
for a wholesaler.
so the reason I'm bringing it up that way is that I've now told you something that you've probably already maybe intuitively understood from a negotiation standpoint, but didn't really have a finger on the technique that was behind it.
Or a naming of it.
Or a naming of it. And I've also told you a pretty complicated and subtle version, right? We've kind of gotten two ends of the spectrum. We got the really easy, okay, you might intuitively have said, well, if they need more money, I'm going to get more of an option. But you may not have intuitively said, oh, man, I can offer interest and, get term out of that, right? There is everything in between. The reason why I'm bringing this up, and I'm doing it in that fashion for you, is that I want you to understand that when you're able to name a convention, when you're able to name a technique, these things that you were doing intuitively, you can actually start employing with more purpose and become more successful at doing them because you're realizing, oh man, I never realized that's why I was successful in getting the option period, is because it was basically the hairy arm. So to set yourself up for future successes on that, and we could go through, I could spend 30 minutes talking about different, you could do this and this and this. To set yourself up for the hairy arm, what I want you guys to do is I actually want you to whiteboard things. You'll see me, you'll see Daniel talking about whiteboarding a lot. I left my whiteboard up at one of my office locations, and so yesterday I literally took butcher paper and taped it up on my wall in my office at the home so I could whiteboard some stuff out. But one of the things I want you to whiteboard out is I want you to look at what you have to offer, okay? What can you offer? What is your absolute maximum allowable offer? And when I say that, I'm not just talking about price. I'm talking about terms too, because terms are a huge part of your offer. So outline, just by going through, like in Texas, we've got the TREC 1 to 4 contract. Look at every item that can be filled in right there and write down what you want out of that, okay?
Then, like your dream scenario.
Yeah, your dream scenario. What's your dream scenario on that? Write down your want for every single item that you've got that you can fill in on a contract. Then, on a separate column, write down what you think your seller's dream scenario is on every single column of that, right?
$1 million.
$1 million. And then what you've got to do is start comparing and contrasting and seeing what are the items that you are immovable on and what are the items that you could win with a couple of different options.
So basically what you're saying is you need to get creative.
Oh, you can get your cash flow creatively through creativecashflow.com.
Cashflow.com. Huh.
Yeah.
Subtle plug.
My name's Grant Kemp, creativecashflow.com, at CCF Mentors. Sunday. Learn more next week. So, yeah, with this proven method. So, what I want you to do, like I said, whiteboard everything that you have to fill in on your contract, your dream scenario, their dream scenario. Now, there are going to be items that are immovable. There are going to be items that's like, I cannot win if I do anything but blank, right?
So would it be, not to interrupt, but it's not a pro-con list because a win for them is not necessarily a con.
Correct.
So should it be more of like and I'm not trying to restructure your thing, I'm just intuitively thinking, my scenario, their scenario, and what's a win-win in the middle?
Yeah, and that's basically what we're looking at. So yeah, we can put that in the middle.
Just trying to help you out with your whiteboarding process.
So what we want to do is we want to look at their wins, and we want to see how many of those wins we are absolutely cool with.
Right.
Okay? Like, I'm totally fine with, whatever, paying all the closing costs. That's another good one, right? I'm totally fine with paying all the closing costs. However, on my contracts, I typically put in that I'm going to pay 50% of the closing costs. That way, when they combat something else on the contract, I can say, okay, I'll give you that, but I'm not going to pay any of the closing costs. Or if they ask me to pay the closing costs, I can give them that because I'm totally fine with paying it, and I can ask for something else that was on my list. That's my hairy arm at that point in time, right? I've said, I want you to pay 50% of the closing costs. That's the focus. They catch that hairy arm. They ask me to change it. But because of reciprocation, because people are so fine with... Here's an example of reciprocation. I think everybody's familiar with the Hare Krishna movement that happened in the, what was it, the 70s or something like that?
That was in the book you like to push.
And Influence. I really like that book a lot. You know, the reason that they started handing flowers to people is that people had a social obligation to listen to them. If they handed a flower to somebody...
Here's a quarter.
Yeah, then there was a social obligation to give something back, which was listening. We're finely tuned in our brains to reciprocate. So... if they say, I'm not willing to pay any closing costs, I can say, okay, I will pay all of the closing costs. Again, that was something I'm totally fine with, but I'm going to go then look on my list of things that I want, and I'm going to ask for one of those items that could be within their realm of okayness, right?
So again, just to keep on throwing out the summary of what it is. The hairy arm is something that you knew you weren't wanting or necessarily, but you're going to ask for it anyway, just so you could take it off the spectrum, and they feel like they have a win.
Right, totally. So in this example with the closing
See,
costs.
that's a 10-second summary.
Yes, thank you.
You're not good at those.
You're right. I'm very verbose. I'm sorry.
CreativeCashflow.com, Sunday. Sorry.
Learn from me in over 45 minutes. This simple 5-second
Real quick.
rule.
Hey, like and share us. We're up here on a Wednesday, right before the holidays. Not for our health, but just to try to share this. Obviously, we want you to go to Propelio for your comps, go to Propelio for your lead list. And then Grant's obviously here because he's sexy. He's just a sexy man. No, but you know what? Check us out. Like and share us. If you have questions, drop them in the comments. We'll get to that here in a second. If you have ideas that we're not really talking about, drop them in the comments.
Yeah.
If you have comments, love to hear them. So like and share. Get this out there nationwide. We need your help. Creative Cashflow. He just got on Facebook, so go like his page. He needs it.
At CCF Mentors. I
There you
need
go.
some more likes there.
He needs love.
But yeah, exactly. And if you do have questions, throw them at us. We'll be answering questions here in a minute on everything. But again, just pointing back to that closing cost thing, I think all of us understand that we're cool with paying closing costs, right? And everybody goes in, and most people have that as their focal point. I'll pay all closing costs. Everybody pays all closing costs, right? You're not separating yourself out from anybody. But if you're a boutique, I'm here because this makes me money, I'm making business decisions, and you throw out that they're going to pay 50% of the closing costs, they might notice that because they've heard other people say they pay all closing costs. So now that's their win.
Right.
Now they have something to point at. Now they have their hairy arm that you've put in front of them, and they get to win by pointing at it and saying, I know other people are willing to pay this, so I want you to pay that too. And you're going to say, oh, that really hurts me. Okay, well, I'll pay that, but I'm not going to be able to do this without an option period or or at this price or whatever it is. Adjust something else that's on your list. So really pregame that, whiteboard that for yourself, and figure out what can be done for them and what can be done for you, and start mixing and matching. And you've got to be creative about this. You've got to have these in your mind from the start.
You ready for a curveball?
I'm ready for a curveball.
I'm a flipper.
Okay.
Not you, but Joe Schmo's the wholesaler. What's the hairy arm in either of those situations? For a wholesaler trying to sell it to the flipper, and the flipper trying to buy it from the wholesaler. Like what's the hairy arm for both scenarios where you're trying to be better for the wholesaler, and then the other one is you're trying to do better for the flipper.
So the
Does
question,
that make sense?
Yeah. So the question being, I'm a wholesaler trying to wholesale this property, and I want to use the hairy arm to get more out of my wholesale.
Yeah,
buyer.
I'm the flipper. You're the wholesaler. You're using a hairy arm towards me.
Yeah, that's a good question. So again, really in that scenario, it's a little bit hard because there's not much of an agreement to be had between us, right? Like, it basically comes down to you give me a sum of money, I give you a contract. There's one item that's being negotiated there.
The sum of money.
The sum of money.
Well, there's two items. There's what's the deposit, the escrow,
that's a good point.
and then there's can you close quicker? And then
that's
what's
a good
the
point.
final contract?
That's a good point. Yeah. So again, approach this in the same method that you would.
Real estate.
Yeah. Approach this in the same method that you would with anybody, with any seller. You've got to whiteboard this. You've got to figure out what's going on. So thank you for pointing those out. You're very right. I'm spoiled by the buyers that I have. So you've got time frames, you've got deposit that's going to be put up, and you've got a price.
The final contract. Yeah.
The hairy arm is going to be less applicable in this because here's the thing: the fewer moving parts that you have, the harder it's going to be to employ the hairy arm. The hairy arm relies on the fact that there are a lot of gears turning and that you're going to give and get, and you're kind of grabbing from one of these to pull from over there. Now, reciprocation is going to be huge in that scenario because you may want a larger deposit and they may need more time to get it, right? But off the cuff, off the top of my head, without sitting down with a whiteboard, I'm not thinking of a great pure hairy arm principle.
And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I was meeting with somebody yesterday, and they were asking for a reference on somebody because they've never done business with them, and from their point of view, they were like, dude, do I really want to give a $5,000 deposit for this wholesale deal?
Right.
And my point of view is, well, $5,000, at least in the North Texas market, that's pretty standard right now. A couple years ago it was 1 to 2, $5,000 deposit for a wholesale deal. That's standard. So if that's your reason for running, well, good luck getting the next property because pretty much everybody else can do that.
Right.
Now, is the person reputable? I can understand that kind of like, okay, Are they real? And I think jumping on Facebook, and that's the beauty of Facebook right now. All you got to do is join your local group and like, hey, is Grant Kemp, is he a real person? And if he's not, people are like, I've never heard of him. I've never heard of him. Or if he's bad, you're going to get a ton of comments. Stay away, run away, he's bad. Or you're going to get a lot of love. No, Grant, he's the man. So use Facebook as a source to find if somebody's reputable. That's kind of way off topic, but that's just because he couldn't come up with a hairy arm.
I know, yeah, I failed you on that.
So
one.
what about from a flipper to a wholesaler? Is the same situation?
Keep pushing the topic. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same. Because here's the thing, like I said before, you have a small amount of items that you have to choose from. And reciprocation is huge, and rapport is huge, and all these other negotiation techniques. I mean, I will be publishing these soon, January 1st. I've got a negotiations quick tip that you can sign up for on creativecashflow.com. I've got, one comes out every week at least, so there's 52 more negotiation techniques of which might be useful in that situation, like reciprocation, like rapport, like all these other things. But hairy arm itself is going to be more applicable when you've got a lot of turning gears and you can really choose
on the front
and pick
side
on the front side.
of
right.
the transaction.
Right off the cuff, I could probably find them, but right off the cuff, I don't have a good
What about
offer
when
there.
I'm trying to buy a car?
You know what? And that's one of the things that I want to point out. Anytime we talk about negotiation stuff, negotiations are a very broad topic. And the cool thing is, like so I do personal mentoring. One of my personal mentoring students, yeah, subtle hint there, right? Thanks for calling that. But I do personal mentoring. One of my personal mentoring students is down in Houston, and she's a high-end jeweler salesman, or saleswoman, I guess. And so she does all this high-end jewelry. And she came back to me after session 4 of our class and was like, dude, I've been converting so many more sales on my jewelry business by using this technique and this technique. She had 3 techniques that I teach in the negotiation series that is really that has made her conversions shoot through the roof in an entirely different realm. So when we're talking about negotiations, you can use it for car sales. You can use it for anything. I went on a cruise one time and got a guy out of his own pants so that I could have some slacks to take my wife to dinner. And if you tune in some other time, I'll tell you that story. But it was through negotiations. Now, I just left him in a closet.
And Shannon was okay with that?
It's like, hey, you want to go in this closet and take off your pants? Thanks. That's not what I did. But
hopefully your wife's not watching. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. And we're out. No, just kidding.
The negotiations that go behind these techniques work everywhere.
Everywhere.
And I want to point out, I'm looking at one of the comments that comes up here, and I do really appreciate, somebody just mentioned that they like turning people onto this rather than going through the gurus. It is important that you really determine who's willing to give actual information and who is just trying to sell you on education. So we appreciate that you picked that up about us, because Propelio.com and CreativeCashflow.com, we both have a really defined, not method, what's the word I'm looking for? Like our mission is to go out there and not be the gurus, that we are giving real stuff that you can
Normally
$9.97,
but today only $90.
Right, yeah. For the first 10 people that like and share this, I give it to you for free, and you can pay.
Sunday.
So I appreciate you saying that. That's encouraging to hear. But yeah, so the hairy arm principle, again, is one of many negotiation techniques that can be put into use, not only in real estate, not only in wholesaling, not only in owner financing, but in every other realm of your life. And just start whiteboarding these things and looking for opportunities to use them.
This is Steve. Steve is a successful real estate investor. Steve is wearing glasses, so therefore he's a successful real estate investor. You go, Steve. Go, Steve, go. Go get those dollars. You see that blue dot? That's Steve. Just looking at houses left and right. Look at him go. Get the Driving for Dollars app today. All without leaving your car.